say thank you and invite Joe up to give his keynote. So let's welcome Joseph La Delfa.
All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome again to Digital Futures and the new inaugural drone challenge, and to this talk about shaping how a drone senses and acts, creating a deep understanding through a lived experience. So when we see people in the movies moving with a robot, with robot bodies that look like our own, it's very easy to imagine what this would be like. You know, I nod my head, the robot nods. Or when I raise my arms, the robot raises its arms. Or when I swing, the robot swings. But what do you do when the robot's really different to your own body? How do you control, for example, sensing and actuating 4 additional limbs that have hundreds more joints than your own arms? The movies make it look really easy, but there's a lot that has to happen between your familiar body and this weird robot. And speaking of weird, drones are weird. They don't have any arms or legs, or they do have arms and legs, or the arms are the legs. It's all very weird. They don't stand, they don't sit, they don't even fly like we would imagine flying, which is normally like a bird or a plane or something like that. So amidst all this weirdness, moving with a robot, people try all of these different kinds of things to get the drone to do stuff. Like, all of this, like these different actions. So what they're trying to do here is they're trying to resolve some fundamental differences between the human body and the drone body. And this is what this talk is about today, trying to resolve those differences. Because on this fundamental sensing and acting level, there is a low common understanding between a human body and a drone body. There's very little common body language. Compared to us sensing and acting on our own bodies, a lot of meaning can be conveyed between the two. So, for example, when sensing other bodies, the speed of your hand can determine how urgent your question seems. Or if you're kind of reluctant to admit something, you may put your hand up very, very slowly. The same can be said when we act on other bodies. The way you pat someone on the head can be the difference between something that's comforting or something that is condescending. So different sides of the body carry different implications and different connotations. So this is why Weibo in the movie Flubber would use depictions of the human body to communicate to the mad scientist. And so Weibo does have some of its own drone body language, but it mostly kind of communicates in this in human body language. But this meaning doesn't just come from the fact that our bodies are more can be articulated in different ways and can express themselves in different ways. It also comes from the fact that we've lived through these experiences. We've been comforted in this way. We've felt that. We've felt the frustration of being condescendingly pat on the head, or the urgency of a question. The rigidity of your body when you have this question to ask, or when you're kind of reluctantly admitting to something. So, if there is no shared body language and no verbal dialogue like we've got here with these drones, then all you're left with is creating this shared experience as a tool to gain this deeper understanding. So just like in How to Train Your Dragon, we have Hiccup and Night Fury. They kind of work together to learn to fly again. Hiccup builds this new tail for Night Fury so that that he must actuate himself in order for them to fly. And they spend a whole montage testing out different prototypes and flying together and really trying to bridge that gap between the differences in their bodies through sensing and acting. And eventually, they finally reach this deep tacit understanding of each other. And he throws away the symbolic language and just flies by feel. He's reached this embodied understanding of how to fly with the dragon, one that you feel. So this kind of deep understanding that I'm talking about here is like the ingredients of this like shared lived experience, but also shared body language. And that comes through like continually or sensing and acting together. So this leads me to my own work called How to Train Your Drone, which is a 1-month long-term user study in a share house in Melbourne, Australia. And it was important to me that this study was conducted in a home where people lived, so that they felt comfortable to use the drone and build this deep understanding with it. I wanted a place where they cooked and ate and slept and danced to conduct the study. So it was 4 weeks, 3 housemates, and they took about 3 sessions a week on these drones. There was Nina, Julian, and Tim who partook in the study. So how does the system work? Well, first you start off by taking a drone from the charger, which sits on the fireplace, as well as some hand sensors, which were also made out of drones with no motors. Then you put on the gloves, pop the hand pads on, turn on the sensors, turn on the drones, and then we launch the drone. So what happens when the drone's in the air? At first it starts spinning, right? And this means that it doesn't know where you are, it doesn't notice you. But if you hold your hands still in one position, it will start to slow down until it kind of snaps to face you. And then after that, you can kind of move it around the room. So we'll see that again from like a wide angle. I'm holding my hands. The drone is slowing down. I move my hands, so I have to start again. Hold really, really still, and then it snaps to me. So what's happening here is something quite basic, really. Like the drone is just saving a relative XYZ position to its own memory. And that position is relative, so it moves with the drone. And then what happens is you basically have this 200 millimeters of leeway, this give, so to speak, before the drone will kind of break away and just stay in one spot again. So that's what this looks like, this kind of elasticity. Then if you move your hands away or break that formation or move too fast, the drone you kind of lose the drone and you're no longer holding it. It'll stay still again. So at this point you have a choice. You can go back to those 2 points that you had before, or you can choose to train another point. And what happens over the course of the month is that you build up these points around the drone, this kind of situated history of where you have held it, so to speak. You also notice that the drone has an eye and an eye color. And this eye color corresponds to different abilities or behaviors within the drone. We have the amber drone, which is the quickest learner. So that time that I held my hands still, it's the smallest for the amber drone. But it's also the most difficult to move. So that 200 millimeters I was talking before is like something much smaller for the amber drone, 50 millimeters. It launches quite low in the air, so that kind of changes how you might approach it. And it spins really slow. So if you think about something that's going slowly already, it's harder to tell when it's about to stop, as opposed to something that's spinning fast and then reducing its speed quite quickly. They also have their own sounds. So the amber drone has this ticking sound that happens when you're kind of looking for a new position. The blue drone is slow to learn, pretty easy to move, like it's about that 200 millimeter of leeway, launches really high in the air, but it also spins quite slow, and it sounds like this. And then the clear drone is the slowest to learn, like taking up to 15 seconds sometimes, or sometimes even longer, to train a position. It's very, very easy to move. That leeway is out to like 250 millimeters. It launches very high in the air and it spins really fast. And it sounds like this. So let's look at that again now, but with sound. See how it works out. So the drone is spinning in the air. You can hear the ticking, the signature ticking of that particular drone. And then hold my hand still. And you hear this rising tone that also corresponds to when the drone is about to face you. And you train that point. So all of this stuff, how to train your drone was designed to kind of elicit very different, divergent experiences for everybody. If we like kind of multiply the unique aspects of each participant and each of the drones, then we end up with very different outcomes, hopefully. And I'll just give you like a little summary of the results now. So Julian had the amber drone. Again, quick learner, but difficult to move. Launched low and span slow. And he said that, I found that when moving to the side, it's quite difficult. It's quite easy to move up and down because the drone doesn't get in the way. But when you're moving laterally, you're going to bump your hand into it. So Julian's drone had this, as I said, super low tolerance for inaccurate movement. And as a result, he noticed how hard it was to move left and right, move the drone left and right as opposed to up and down. And so I invite you now to experience that an aspect of what Julian was feeling by standing up if you want to, or you can do it while you're sitting, and holding out your hands in front of you. Now you're going to make sure that your hands are parallel to the floor. And I want you to push your hands down to a comfortable position, keeping your hands the same distance apart from each other, and then raising them up to as high as what is comfortable. And try this a few times, keeping a note on how far your hands are apart from each other and whether they're raising at the same speed or not. Now, I don't want, if we're doing this, we're moving in an arc. So remember, we're kind of trying to draw a straight line in space, up and down. So next, I want you to bring your hands up to eye level and compare it to moving left and right. Having the same action, but now you're in a different plane. And you might find that you're moving your pecs a little bit differently. You have to engage your pecs. Your hands are like out of your orthogonal line of sight, so you might not be able to exactly tell whether or not they're the same anymore. So this is why Julian kind of couldn't do this, and so he had to just like lock his hands in, stick out a toe, and move across. The blue drone was piloted by Tim. Again, slow to learn, but pretty easy to move. The blue one was like a middle of the road drone. It launched high and it span slow. Tim said, I was thinking about training the drone at specific intervals and within those movements to be able to flow through them. So what he's talking about there is this kind of very planned and premeditated approach he took. You saw before that he was already like practicing what movements to do before the drone like launched in the air. And he had this sequence in mind before everything started that he wanted to do, which was something like pushing the drone down, pulling it back up again, kind of catching it in a different position, then pushing it out, back in again, and out. And then at the end, he kind of like opens up his arms and kind of moves through all these points that he's placed around the drone in this semicircle. So he was very conscious about the construction of this shape. And finally, the clear drone. This is piloted by Nina. Super slow to learn, but really easy to move once you teach it a position. Launched really high in the air and span pretty quick. Nina said, but for every session, I have approached it as having a fun time and playing. I think in this context, it's good because you just have to respond to what is happening. So here she is performing a dance to Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairies with the drone. And notice how she's kind of more okay with just letting the drone hang there and doing some improvisational ditty on the side. So she doesn't have to be as conscious of how her body is moving or what stage of the sequence she's in, like compared to Tim or Julian. She can instead focus on moving the drone in time with the music. And yeah, Julian had some cameo appearances. So yeah, you can see how each participant gained a deeper understanding of their drone through this shared lived experience. So Julian had this very analytical style where he was conscious of his body. Tim was very focused and wanted that repetition and the sequence. And Nina had this kind of situated planning, in the moment, freestyle approach. And so going back to this list of ingredients, that's one of them, the shared lived experience. The other one is this shared body language, that is created or worked on through sensing and action, repeated sensing and action. And that can be seen here. This is the shape that all the points made at the end of the month when you collect them all together. And this is the shape of the body that connects our human bodies to the drone bodies, and they're different for each person. This is like the shared body language created through those tiny loops of sensing and acting. Now, I had a go at everybody's drone, and I felt like a participant in my own study. These drones felt really unfamiliar to me, and I had to be coached by Julian, Tim, and Nina to use them in the way that they did. So I'll go through all these shapes in a little bit more detail. So Julian, you can see with Julian, he's got these more dense areas of points immediately left and right of the drone. And so he worked a lot on building up this sensitivity around the left and right hand side of the drone. And because so many of these points were packed in such a tight space, you actually ended up with this really cool, subtle array of ways in which you could kind of hold the drone if it was right here. Tim had these big arcs that came around either side of you, and also the 2 points up here that he would use to grab and push the drone down. And he knew where those points were very, very intuitively. And I was, in comparison, kind of searching for them. And when I tried to reach for the widest parts, I couldn't even get those very, very wide parts out there because Tim's arm span was so much bigger than mine. I felt like I was riding a bicycle that was too big for me. And then Nina, she had this very evenly distributed points around the drone, but not many clusters of points like Julian. So when using it, it felt like a very robust, elastic operation. I could kind of grab it from any angle, or even just know that if I stuck my hand out somewhere, some point will land. But this also meant that there was not a lot of granularity in how you could kind of hold it in the same way that you could with Julian's. So the last thing I want to talk about is exploring other machines. With this idea of a shared body language, think of it like a digital body between us and the drone. And we can begin to explore other types of machines outside of drones, if we think of it in this way. So in the coming virtual and augmented futures, we will have the opportunity to build these nuanced and personalized relationships with our machines, both in the physical and the virtual realms. So as an example, right now we have we can shape our car, for example, to suit our ability. We can use the throttle and the hand and the ball steering wheel to to turn the steering wheel with one hand, if we have a certain disability that stops us from using our legs. Or we, if you want, use a ship's wheel to drive your car instead of a car steering wheel, if that is your preference. But why does it even have to be a steering wheel? Perhaps you prefer the feel of a stunt kite to drive your car, or maybe a fictional example. You like the shallow bath that you immerse your hands in Battlestar Galactica to pilot the Cylon base star. All of this can start to happen in this across this physical and virtual environment. And with the advent of autonomous vehicles and remote operations of them, we could safely interpret these needs and these different abilities into input and feedback from any given vehicle. And I think an approach like sensing and acting is important to help us achieve this, resulting in us all being able to, reach that deeper understanding with our machines in the same way that Julian, Tim, Nina, and Hiccup did. So Whether you win or lose this week, I'd like you to take notice of your teammates and your competitors in the coming days. Look at the different implementations that they made and the bodies that implemented them. This is fertile ground for new ideas. And I hope that all of these similarities and differences can help you design your next human-computer interaction. So this work is not done all on my own. I have awesome supervisors. I have people around me who give me cool, mind-bending discussions. Lots of people give me space and equipment. So thank you to all of these people. Close collaborators, technical support, lots of technical support, and also like lots and lots of salvational technical support from a fair few, from a small group of people at BitCraze. So thank you to them. And also thank you to Irie and Luca for letting me speak today. That's all. Thank you. You can find me at Cafe Chapter.